Let's get on to Nigeria, where the biggest political news this week was the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal reaffirming President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the winner of the February 2023 presidential election. Two other candidates in the poll, Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, said they are heading to the Supreme Court to challenge Thursday's judgment. In the meantime, the economy is trudging on under the impact of fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate unification moves, with warnings around the country's FX reserves and ratings showing up in the news during the week. Let's put all of this together for a Thank God Friday cocktail with a Rise political editor, Sumner Sambo. Thanks for stepping in, Sumner, this evening. This is a cocktail for this evening. Let's get started on the political front. What are we drinking? It looks like the presidential elections battle is not over yet.
Yes, Bosun, good evening to you and our viewers. The battle is not over yet. The Supreme Court is where the next cocktail and final one will be taking place. And of course, both parties that have shown an indication out of the three that previously petitioned, the courts have decided ahead of time that they will be appealing, and that's talking about the PDP, the main opposition party, and of course the third force, the Labour Party. So both of them have indicated that they will be appealing the judgment of the Presidential Election Petitions Court. And of course, the candidates have also said that they will be appealing. That's Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and of course Peter Obi of the Labour Party. And of course, it's still victorious celebration for the camp of the winner, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who happens to be the president of Nigeria at the moment, is in India. And I can tell you that they've been having lots of cocktails with lots of fanfare, glamour, and, they've been very victorious. And so they, of course, have the right to celebrate. And of course, we are asking that this celebration should be magnanimous to everyone. We have a country to run. Let's see how we can get things together, irrespective of the planned decision by the other two political parties to go to the Supreme Court. But it's good to know that supporters of both major opposition parties have been very calm. The judgment is still being criticized everywhere. And of course, it's within the right of every Nigerian to be able to express his or her opinion, both the losing side, of course, the winning side, because, I mean, you can see lots of analysts from Nigeria's governing party, the APC, saying that, look, they had said it previously that the opposition was not going to make any headway. Well, it's left for Nigeria's constitutional court, which is the Supreme Court, to now tell us what exactly the position of law is and, of course, clarify certain issues reached by the lower courts.
So from the way things are right now, Sumner, do you think the Atiku and Obis are heading to the Supreme Court as anything that will stall down economic governance in any manner for the Tinubu's administration? This is an administration that needs that momentum right now from the initial honeymoon that it had on the removal of fuel subsidy and the exchange rate unification.
Yes, of course, it won't make the president to sleep fine. I mean, if you had read the statement right from India, where he has said that he couldn't just believe his luck, that the courts, affirmed his winning all of this election and some of the things brought in place by the opposition, the court, discharged and acquitted him from all of them. And so he was so very elated about all of this. But the decision of the main opposition parties to actually go to the Supreme Court will also still keep him, busy worrying about some of the decisions that may likely come out. But the Supreme Court is a court of review. Majority of the works are often done by the lower courts. In this instance, the Court of Appeal, which is sitting as the Presidential Election Petitions Court. And with some of the key cases decided, most times, Supreme Court being as the court of review, it's usually in very rare circumstances that you actually see the Supreme Court taking a decision that's much different from that of the lower court. When it comes to our electoral jurisprudence, especially in the Fourth Republic, except that of 2007, where we had a split decision, and of course you had the likes of, the later Justice Nikki Toby and others, including then the Chief Justice of Nigeria casting the last ballot to actually save the situation, including the winner of that election himself, then President Yar'Adua saying that, look, this election was fraught with lots of irregularities. It's difficult to see such a situation at the moment because we don't have activist judges, if you may say it that way, or the law is actually taking its course. But of course, with lots of criticisms here and there, it's left to be seen if President Tinubu will not have lots of headaches ahead of him, even as he tries to marshal out a plan for the economic revival of the country. Because lots of Nigerians, are pushing these things away and say, look, okay, politicians, you always know how to play your game, but what exactly should the average man on the street be expecting in terms of the economic palliatives that have been promised, which are yet to be fully made available? The government promised 5 billion. We're only seeing 2 billion being sent to states. Now, Bosin, by September 20th this year is when Nigeria will be marking 100 years of holding general elections in the country. We started the elections in 1922, but with the Lagos City Council elections. So if we say in terms of election, it will be 101 years by now. But in terms of holding general elections across the country, by September 20th, that's in the next 12 days, it's going to be 100 years that we've been holding elections. Now, if you follow electoral jurisprudence and how we've gone through right from the days of Herbert Macaulay of the NNDP, and then, of course, going to the Nigerian youth movement, way up to the independence, and now, the thing is that have politicians learned that Nigeria needs to be one, people need to obey the laws, and then the citizens deserve good governance. The economic fortunes of the country have dwindled.
Yes.
Why haven't we implemented certain reforms that we said that we were going to do by ourselves?
So Sumner, your sense of political history is really appreciated and very robust. Thank you so much. But again, you see, it all goes down to how soon do you think the whole political wranglings and contests will settle down to allow the government, the political environment to settle down for real governance at all levels, federal, states, local governments, whatever?
Well, if we follow the electoral guideline, including the constitutional, provisions. Those who want to appeal right now at the Supreme Court have 21 days to do that. And of course, the Supreme Court has 60 days to actually determine the outcome. So by November 6th is when we are hopefully expecting the Supreme Court to discharge its responsibilities as to who eventually won this election, since there are appeals to the decision of the Court of Appeal, which is sitting as the Presidential Election Petitions Court. Now, in this instance, the judiciary has to play its function very, very well. Ensure that there's, a faith by people in the system. We've seen a lot of things that have been trashed out by the first court of instance. And so once it gets to the Supreme Court, they must give room for people not to be suspicious of anything. And the opposition parties must give room continuously to the belief in the rule of law, that they can obtain justice even at the Supreme Court. Now, when you see a situation whereby the courts have ruled and they rule against the opposition and the opposition is crying foul, then you now also begin to wonder if it's not this same court that these opposition leaders resorted to in the past and they got some sort of relief. Peter Obi got some relief when he was governor of Anambra State. I mean, his election was overturned, and then, of course, the Supreme Court came to his support. Even when he was impeached, the same thing with Atiku. You saw all the battles that happened between him and Obasanjo when he was the vice president of the country. Yes, I mean, those who were in the Supreme Court have changed in terms of persons, but the institution remains. So we must continue to have faith in the judiciary, even when it brings to us those things that we do not like. Because we have a country to run, and the president must also show intention to obey the rule of law.
Sumner, you and I know that Nigeria's political landscape is not like that of the European Premier League, where you get a World Cup, and of course, whoever wins on this side just decide to go home and be, well, it's different on the political front. But again, let's talk about, because you mentioned earlier your comment that Nigerians are looking at Tinubu's first 100 days political economic rub-down. Give me some rub-down, as it were, on the economic front so far. What do you think Nigerians on the streets are mostly worried about right now? What goes on in that courtroom yesterday, or what goes on the market street, at the fuel stations, at the bank, and the exchange rate on the market street? What do you think Nigerians are focusing on first 100 days and counting?
It's the value of the naira in their pocket. Both you and I know that, I mean, once you leave the studio right now, you may not necessarily buy something off the shelf in a supermarket almost at the same amount that you bought it maybe 48 hours ago. The value of the naira continues to dwindle in relation to even currencies within the West African sub-region. And it's never been this bad. And so the government needs to really, really work out that on how the naira can quickly regain its value in relation to the dollar, in relation to other currencies. And then, of course, ensure that those things that Tinubu had promised himself in his renewed hope mandate are actually actualized, because there are so many promises that he has made. And you see, Bosin, just like we discussed the other day on what's happening across Africa, the problem with our politicians is that they overpromise and underdeliver. And because of this, expectations are heightened. And when good governance is not delivered based on what the politicians have promised, then of course you see lots of problems within the political circles. And so President Tinubu has promised us a lot on the renewed hope mandate. I just hope that whenever he wakes up every day, he takes a look at that mandate and he knows that it's an oath that he has taken to himself and of course to the constitution of this country to do this country right. And that doing right starts from the economy. How can people be paid 30,000 naira per a month, and then that 30,000 naira is not even enough to be able to fill their cars nowadays? People are beginning to wonder what sort of economy we're running. There are palliatives that are promised. They are not coming very quick. The subnationals are also not doing enough to support the federal government, because state governors are thinking and behaving as if the party still continues. But look, we have to engage in reforms both at the subnational levels that will help strengthen the economy, because it's not the job of the president alone. The governors were elected, senators, House of Rep members were elected, State House of Assembly members were elected. We have a country to run. Apart from that, thinking big, just hold on, Bosin, let me just quickly conclude on this. How do we ensure that Nigeria works towards a $1 trillion economy? Tinubu had promised a 10% GDP growth. I'm thinking that economic analysts should start looking at it. To see if indeed, starting from 6% that he had promised, that those things that will engender a 10% by 2027 actually being put on ground.
From tonight, there will be no more cocktails. I'll take that off my script. Nobody should have cocktails anymore. There's a whole lot more work to do. Thank you. But if you want to have a cocktail for being on the show, that's on me. Thank you so much. Our political editor, Arise, political editor Sumner Sambo, out of our Abuja studios. Thank you so much.